In a single day, the average adult makes over 35,000 decisions, most of them forgotten, but none without cost. Not financial, mental, and like erosion over time. This invisible weight, known as decision fatigue, carves away your clarity, your calm, and your life's direction. But what if there was a way to silence that chaos? Not with productivity hacks, but with the geometry of stillness itself. Welcome to Microtopia Minimalism, a space not just small, but sovereign, where fewer objects don't just mean less clutter, they mean fewer choices. And fewer choices? That's freedom, disguised as simplicity. In this video, we'll explore 5 hidden mechanisms inside microtopian living that quiet the mental storm. Not someday, but in under 10 minutes. You'll see how the way you arrange a corner or remove a drawer can reset your brain's decision circuitry effortlessly. This isn't about discipline. It's not even about organizing. It's about designing a thought sanctuary where every choice has already been made by intention. Stay with me. By the end, you won't just fix decision fatigue. You'll feel what it's like to breathe before your brain gets overwhelmed. In every home, there's a corner, often unused, often unnoticed. But in a microtopian space, this corner is no longer accidental. It becomes architectural psychology. The angle of a chair, the proximity of a lamp, the emptiness behind a curtain, these aren't aesthetic choices. They are cognitive cues. What you face when you pause is what your mind rehearses. And so, the corner is shaped not for comfort, but for clarity. This is the first secret to eliminating decision fatigue: predictive placement. In a world that overfeeds us options, what to wear, what to watch, what to buy, Microtopia offers something quietly radical. It programs your space to decide before you must. A teacup positioned exactly where your hand drifts at 7 a.m. A notebook aligned not for decoration, but for invitation. A single chair angled away from screens towards sunlight. These gestures don't scream productivity, but they whisper direction. Here, the corner is not where decisions begin, it's where they end. When the space around you pre-decides your next micro move, your brain is no longer burdened with low-stakes choices. You feel lighter, not because you've done less, but because you've decided less. It is in this subtle automation of the everyday, this elegant autopilot, that Microtopia earns its power. And the beauty? It doesn't require blueprints or budgets, only intention and the humility to let your environment lead when your mind is tired of steering. Tucked inside every microtopian space is a rhythm, not quite a routine, not quite a ritual. It is a loop, soft in structure but firm in outcome. And it begins not with a plan, but with pause. A short, intentional circuit you walk or perform within your space, often no more than 10 minutes, but just long enough to flush the fog from your mind. This is the 10-minute reset loop, a design principle disguised as habit. Imagine a kettle being filled, a journal cracked open, a cloth passed over a surface. These aren't chores, they are mental valves, releasing the pressure of accumulated micro-decisions. Instead of racing from one task to the next, Microtopia invites you to engage in this loop, a choreographed calm, where simplicity becomes a kind of psychological hygiene. Within this loop, the body moves just enough to waken, but never rushes. It touches familiar anchors, the warm mug, the quiet bench, the folded cloth. The brain, once frantic, begins to mirror this flow. Because when a space contains only what is needed to perform this loop, and nothing more, there is no question of what comes next. You've removed the menu. All that remains is movement, clarity, and quiet reset. It is not about doing nothing. It is about doing the same things, in the same way, at the same time. Microtopia does not demand elaborate rituals. It simply holds the space for small, repeating acts to become a form of recovery. 10 minutes, one loop, and suddenly, decision fatigue retreats, not through willpower, but through patterned peace. Every environment contains pathways, not just for the feet, but for the mind. And in microtopian design, these paths are never left to chance. This is where default path design begins. the art of subtly shaping your space so that your next move is always already chosen. Imagine stepping into a room where the floor is uncluttered, where the nearest surface holds only what you need next: a glass of water, a single notepad, a pair of walking shoes. There are no crossroads, no hesitations. Your body walks forward, but so does your intention. These default paths are not controlling. They are liberating, because they remove the friction of choice in moments when your mind is most vulnerable to distraction. Most spaces, even minimalist ones, still carry hidden tension. An extra chair creates the option to procrastinate. A second screen draws attention you didn't know you'd given. But in a microtopian space, each path is edited. There is only one exit, one drawer, one next step. Not because options are bad, but because they are expensive, not in money, but in mental bandwidth. When your environment gently guides you, the invisible burden of direction dissolves. You find yourself doing what you meant to do, not out of discipline, but because the space made it easier than not doing it. That is the silent genius of default path design. It lets the space act as a compass, so your mind can stop pretending to be a map. There is a quiet discipline in the architecture of restraint, and nowhere is this more powerful than in the one-surface rule. In a microtopian space, this principle governs not through minimalism's austerity, but through precision. It suggests that in every room, no matter how small, there is one dominant surface. And what rests on that surface decides your day, not metaphorically, quite literally. Whether it's a dining table, a writing desk, or a windowsill, that one horizontal plane becomes a reflection of your current intention. Left ungoverned, it fills with noise, receipts, tangled chargers, abandoned projects. But refined under the Microtopia lens, it becomes a stage for singular focus. One item, one purpose, one permission slip for the mind to enter flow. This rule isn't about cleanliness. It's about clarity. When the brain sees a single surface with a single object, the mental chatter silences, because there is no visual negotiation. You don't ask, "What should I do now?" You simply begin. The cup invites reflection. The open notebook invites creation. The empty plate, perhaps it reminds you to nourish. In a world full of layered surfaces, both physical and mental, Microtopia strips the visual field down to a whisper. And in that whisper is direction. You stop scrolling rooms for answers and start inhabiting them. The one-surface rule is more than a practice. It is a pact between your space and your mind to honor one focus at a time. In the natural world, stillness is never wasted. It is where animals hide, where ecosystems recover, where clarity forms before movement begins again. Microtopia borrows this principle, not as philosophy, but as function. It asks a bold question: what if stillness itself could be designed into your space? Not just permitted, but required? This is the unseen force behind stillness as a functional feature. In most homes, silence and pause are incidental, something you squeeze in between noise. But a microtopian space builds them in like a structural beam. A bare wall facing a chair, a quiet patch of floor that catches morning light, a shelf left intentionally empty. These are not afterthoughts. They are anchors. They serve no task, yet perform the most important task of all: resetting the nervous system. In this kind of space, your attention isn't tugged, it's invited. And in that pause, the mind does something extraordinary. It processes. It heals. It simplifies without effort. The absence becomes useful. Not dramatic, not performative, just there, like breath, like gravity. Stillness doesn't mean inactivity. It means deliberate non-interference. A room that doesn't demand you act. A space that offers neutrality, where no decision is expected, and therefore, decision fatigue has no foothold. Designing for stillness isn't decorative. It's neurological. And when you treat it as a feature, your environment becomes a quiet ally, reminding you that not everything needs doing. Some things simply need being. In a world overflowing with options, Microtopia doesn't offer more solutions. It removes the need for them. It doesn't shout. It clears space so you can listen. And when your space starts thinking for you, when each surface speaks one intention, when stillness becomes a structural element, decision fatigue simply has nowhere left to land. This was never about shrinking your life. It was about concentrating it, designing an environment so refined, it quietly hands your mind back to you. If this sparked something within you, I invite you to explore more. Journey through our playlists on elderly wisdom, hollow era reflections, and more on this channel. And if clarity, calm, and meaning resonate with you, consider subscribing. Your path to intentional living is just beginning. Let's walk it quietly together.